Rothschild's Fiddle by Anton Chekhov. Translated by Constance Garnett. This reading by Douglas Harvey. The town was a little one, worse than a village, and it was inhabited by scarcely any but old people, who died with an infrequency that was really annoying. In the hospital and in the prison fortress, very few coffins were needed. In fact, business was bad. If Yakov Ivanov had been an undertaker, in the chief town of the province, he would certainly have had a house of his own, and people would have addressed him as Yakov Matveyich. Here in this wretched little town, people called him simply Yakov. His nickname in the street was, for some reason, Bronze, and he lived in a poor way like a humble peasant, in a little old hut in which there was only one room, and in this room he and Marfa, the stove, a double bed, the coffins, his bench, and all their belongings were crowded together. Yakov made good, solid coffins. For peasants and working people he made them to fit himself, and this was never unsuccessful, for there were none taller and stronger than he, even in the prison, though he was 70. For gentry and for women he made them to measure, and used an iron foot rule for the purpose. He was very unwilling to take orders for children's coffins, and made them straight off without measurements, contemptuously, and when he was paid for the work he always said, "I must confess I don't like trumpery jobs." Apart from his trade, playing the fiddle brought him a small income. The Jews' orchestra, conducted by Moisey Ilyich Shakas, the tinsmith, who took more than half their receipts for himself, played as a rule at the weddings in town. As Yakov played very well on the fiddle, especially Russian songs, Shakas sometimes invited him to join the orchestra at a fee of half a ruble a day, in addition to tips from the visitors. When Bronze sat in the orchestra, first of all, his face became crimson and perspiring. It was hot. There was a suffocating smell of garlic. The fiddle squeaked. The double bass wheezed close to his right ear, while the flute wailed at his left, played by a gaunt, red-haired Jew who had a perfect network of red and blue veins all over his face, and who bore the name of the famous millionaire Rothschild. And this accursed Jew contrived to play even the liveliest things plaintively. For no apparent reason, Yakov, little by little, became possessed by hatred and contempt for the Jews, and especially for Rothschild. He began to pick quarrels with him, rail at him in unseemly language, and once even tried to strike him, and Rothschild was offended and said, looking at him ferociously, "If it were not that I respect you for your talent, I would have sent you flying out the window." Then he began to weep, and because of this Yakov was not often asked to play in the orchestra. He was only sent for in case of extreme necessity in the absence of one of the Jews. Yakov was never in a good temper, as he was continually having to put up with terrible losses. For instance, it was a sin to work on Sundays or saints' days, and Monday was an unlucky day, so that in the course of the year there were some 200 days on which, whether he liked it or not, he had to sit with his hands folded. And only think what a loss that meant. If anyone in the town had a wedding without music, or if Shakas did not send for Yakov, that was a loss too. The superintendent of the prison was ill for 2 years and was wasting away, and Yakov was impatiently waiting for him to die. But the superintendent went away to the chief town of the province to be doctored, and there took and died. There's a loss for you, 10 rubles at least, as there would have been an expensive coffin to make, lined with brocade. The thought of his losses haunted Yakov, especially at night. He laid his fiddle on the bed beside him, and when all sorts of nonsensical ideas came into his mind, he touched a string, the fiddle gave out a sound in the darkness, and he felt better. On the 6th day of the previous year, Marfa had suddenly been taken ill. The old woman's breathing was labored, she drank a great deal of water, and she staggered as she walked. Yet she lighted the stove in the morning and even went herself to get water. Towards evening she lay down. Yakov played his fiddle all day.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?